it's nice to see so many of you. Thanks for coming. Well, Equinox, it has science, witches, murders, what more could you want? It's told by its two characters, leading characters. Helen, who's in her early 30s and is an experienced seafarer, and her cousin Malcolm, who works on Rannoch Moor as a ranger. And near where he works is a huge new facility run by a Scottish start-up company called Fundamental Forces, who are hoping to solve the problem of green energy with a new technology called the Transilience Gate. So that's what you need to know before we start. I'm going to read the opening of the story in which Helen is on a boat, a Scottish Marine survey boat, off the Outer Hebrides. She's a big tall woman, and she's known as Hulky to her workmates. Everyone has a nickname, and that's hers. So here we go. Hey, Hulky, skipper wants you. Main aft, pronto. Bring your med kit, he says. Aye, aye, sir. The only possible response. I grabbed the first aid box and a box of latex gloves. When I got aft, there was a huddle round the trawl net. Only just winched in and still streaming water. No obviously bleeding crew member. McIver, I've called you out here as our stand-in medic. Even the captain sounded upset. So if nobody was injured, why did they need my med-cert knowledge? It looks like we've trawled a body. Luckily, it's not the first body I've seen fished out the sea, so I knew what to expect. Looked as if he, clearly a he, hadn't been in the water all that long, since there wasn't much swelling and no evidence of bits nibbled away. Definitely dead. He was wearing a dark zipped anorak, a size too big for him, with lumpy bulges at the sides. I think we'd better unzip the jacket, I said. Look for ID. Find out what those great big bulges are. Russian gold, let's hope. Nobody laughed. Tipping the pockets out gave us a pile of beach pebbles, up to the size of small rocks, so that was why the body had been subsurface, weighted down. Not an accident then. I took a picture of them. The inside breast pocket of the anorak had a credit card and a driving licence in the name of Gray McMalkin. The licence address was in Glasgow, so not a local. I bagged them. There was nothing in the pockets of the jeans, nor in the check shirt under the anorak. There was a black cord round the body's neck. This turned out to be a leather thong with one of those amulet-like pendants some men wear. A little chipped stone arrowhead in this case, probably turned out by the 1,000 in China. I left it there. I took pictures of everything and some close-ups of the face and head. He'd been a thin and rather elegant-looking man, younger than his thick grey hair suggested. His dead eyes were a startling shade of green, a bit creepy somehow, as if they could still see you. You done, McIver? The captain asked. Then I'll go and radio Stornoway, up to them to deal with this. I'll get a new schedule plotted with Murray, sailing in 30 minutes, I should think. I was left with the pile of pebbles on the deck, a couple of dozen or so. Well, evidence, I supposed. Maybe a rocks expert could tell which beach they'd come from. My cousin Malcolm, bit of a geology freak, would certainly know what type of rock they were. I started sorting the pebbles into rough size order as all that training on stowing things kicked in. Larger objects first. Most of them were irregular shapes in dull colours, but then one caught my eye. It had that smooth egg shape that fits your palm. Felt really good in my hand. It was light green in colour. Very smart. Oh, they won't miss one, I thought, and I slipped it into my pocket.
So, thanks, Ruth. I'm now going to read from the start of Malcolm's story. Malcolm's an ex-Glasgow teacher. Something awful has happened to him that we don't discover at this point, and he's now working out of a Nissen hut in the middle of Rannoch Moor as a ranger. I was about to start on the chores when a car drew up and two older people entered the hut. "Welcome to Rannoch Moor," I said, proffering them the visitor's book. "How How can I help you? The couple were most forthcoming. From Southern California, they were recently retired and exploring their Scottish roots. They particularly wanted to find the McGhie stone. They read that it was an ancient seat of power. The rest of the day was quiet. Late in the afternoon, I was about to shut up shop when I heard the older couple's car returning. "You've got to help us," cried the man, barely through the door. "There's a body up by the McGhie stone." "That's dreadful," I said. "Have you any idea what might have happened?" "All we saw was the body," said the man. "We didn't want to touch anything." "What did they look like?" I said. "It was a woman," said his partner. "She looked so weird, wrapped in a thing like a poncho, with a flying hat, like Amelia Earhart." "Are you sure there was a body?" I said. "Of course there was a body," said the man. "Do you think we're dumb?" "Have you told the police?" I said. The man and the woman guardedly looked at each other. "We don't want to mess with your authority," said the woman. "We can't afford any hassle." Before I could remonstrate further with them, they'd fled the hut. Did I call the police? I did not. I knew fine that my neighbour Dougie in the Aylett police station would be less than delighted to head off on a wild goose chase on a dark, wet evening. Instead, I shut up the visitor centre and set off in my trusty steed. The track across the moor is little more than a hiker's trail. Rocky and muddy in equal measure, it's ideal terrain for a Land Rover. Halfway to the stone, the Black Corrie's lodge was still boarded up. I didn't think anyone would be back there soon. As I neared the stone, the track ran along the high chain-link fence that bounded the Fundamental Forces facility. F2 took their security seriously. The fence was electrified with huge warning signs every 5 minutes or so. I pulled up next to the fence. The sun was setting, so I retrieved the torch from the toolbox, switched it on, and circled the stone, scanning all around. There was no sign of a body, but on the far side of the stone, deep in the heather, was a battered sit-up-and-beg bicycle. As the light began to fade, I heard an owl hoot. I looked up, and there was the familiar silhouette perched on top of the chain-link fence. As I walked towards the owl, its hoots grew more acute. When I reached the fence, the hooting abruptly stopped. "What's the problem?" I said, feeling foolish. "No mice?" The owl winked and looked down and round. Tracing the owl's gaze with the torchlight, I caught a sudden glimpse of green. I bent over and picked up a smooth round stone. At first glance, in the torchlight, it looked like a green marble. Well, that's really white marble suffused with green serpentine. But as far as I know, that came from islands like Iona, way over to the west. I'd need to check. I rolled the stone around my fingers. The stone felt warm, as if it knew me. On impulse, I held the stone up to the owl. The owl hooted twice and flew off into the gloom. So, thank you very much. We wrote this during lockdown with no contact. We were using the Google Drive, taking it turns to write chapters. When we had to write joint chapters, we had WhatsApp on speaker mode, and we squabbled with each other until we got it right. No, we worked out a way of working where we agreed up front that we were not going to criticise each other's style. We were only going to comment where the stories didn't fit together properly. And I think we both felt that worked really well.
No writers were hurt in the making of this.
Exactly. But we would really, really like to thank Rose and Alan and Stairwell for the enthusiasm with which they've taken on our book. We're very, very pleased to be with Stairwell, and we're really looking forward to it appearing. So thank you both very much, and thank you all for listening.